support law enforcement. The SOE declared July 18th is under fire from the opposition, with UNC critics accusing the government of hiding behind the police and lacking a real crime plan. Opposition leader Penelope Beckles condemned the move as inconsistent and politically motivated. Former top cop Gary Griffith also questioned the scope of the measure, saying a targeted response would have sufficed. MSJ leader David Abdullah warned against overusing states of emergency, saying they risk becoming ineffective if used too frequently. A Canupia auto electrician was shot dead just days after the SOE was declared. 37-year-old Denny Ramkisoon, also known as Electric, was ambushed on Sampson Street on the night of July 19th while standing outside a shop. He died shortly after being rushed to the Chaguanas Health Facility. His brother said Ramkisoon had been planning to open a garage and provide for his family. Now the family is in mourning with another child on the way. Police have not confirmed a motive, but some speculate it may have been a case of mistaken identity. His brother is now calling for increased police patrols in the area, saying officers are rarely seen. Internationally, a 158-year-old UK transport company collapsed after hackers guessed an employee's password, triggering a massive ransomware attack. KNP, once operating 500 trucks, lost all internal data after hackers encrypted its system and demanded a ransom. The firm could not afford the estimated £5 million payment and eventually folded, leaving 700 workers jobless. The National Cybersecurity Center says ransomware attacks are rising sharply, with over 19,000 cases last year. Experts say attacks are now easier to carry out, with criminals exploiting weak links or tricking IT staff into granting access. The UK government is now considering new rules that may require companies to report ransomware incidents and ban public bodies from paying ransoms. Cybersecurity officials warn that if companies don't strengthen their defenses, major attacks will continue to grow. Well, that's news to the hour on WESN. I'm Naomi McNish. Thanks for watching.
WESN.
Hello, Trinidad and Tobago. My name is Mark Anthony Peter, and welcome to Breakthrough right here on WESN Content Capital. Thank you so much for always joining us on this lovely Monday morning. Every Monday morning, or kind of every Monday morning, but I've been trying to get better at it. However, joining me on this journey again, I just want to say, like I mentioned last week, we've been doing Breakthrough for just over a year, and it's been very, very amazing. It's been a wonderful experience. So thank you to everyone who's been tuning in and supporting us. And with me along the journey, as always, from beginning till now, and Lord knows when the
Careful how you frame things.
Yes, I know.
Don't speak things out of existence.
Correct. Sean Michael Small, ladies and gentlemen.
Just want to correct you. We don't know who might be joining us on the weekend, on Friday. On the replays, not everybody sees everything as it happens, and they might say, I prefer to watch this on my Friday, whenever we can, just saying, let's not date ourselves now, This week's episode of Breakthrough.
Yes,
it's
absolutely wonderful. But thank you. How have you been? How's your week? I see you're in studio.
The funny part was, the week in Tobago was so much easier than the weekend when I came back from Tobago, right? I did have a rest day yesterday, but we were at TIC on Saturday.
Right, yes.
The rest of the crew was there from Thursday. I did run into Etienne Charles.
Okay.
He was just there, like, playing a drum with another guy playing a drum and some okojambis. I'm just like, this is one of the most random yet brilliant things I've seen in a long time, because you have this convention, but then you just have this random source of entertainment. But it's not like they just got any old Tom. No, they bring in Etienne Charles.
Of course.
Not to play trumpet, but just to beat a rhythm, right? And the signature glasses,
Caribbean,
you know?
Yes,
Caribbean,
Caribbean music.
So you know, I hailed him out and said, hey, I might need to ask you for an interview. He said, yeah, message me on social media. So, you know, keep that in the safe files for later, because that would have been a guest that I wanted on this show from the beginning, as long as we've been here.
We'll work on it. We'll work on it. You know, always making sure that we, you know, that we have the
yeah,
great guests
I will
on.
say, I think he's like 1 year older than me. Went to Fatima about the same time that I did. He will also be in line for the legendary moniker. Just so
okay.
He will also be.
Yeah, Sean doesn't just give it to just about anybody.
Yeah.
But no, it's but I'm glad I did see you all on the TIC. A lot of people that I knew, well, a lot of businesses I saw they entered they were at the convention, and it seemed to be a very good pretty good turnout. Congratulations to the winners of the thing that we had. You know, that was great.
We had a green screen fun for a few people, some kids, some adults got a pose in front of their favorite IP or check out how our green screen works. So, you know, and that was just a Saturday. Of course, there was more business people there Thursday and Friday.
Right.
But you know, it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad.
Nice.
It was very crowded, which you rarely complain.
Of course, that's really good. So I guess it turned out to be a
hard
really
on
good.
the feet.
Of course, because you have to stand. You're so accustomed to sitting all of the time.
Yes.
You have to actually stand.
Funny enough.
And greet people and interact.
Funny enough.
Socially.
Saturday was apparently like you standing today, because I walked to the airport from Sandy Point. Right? I didn't want to, like, that's like a 40 to 60, I don't even know, I'm talking like 10, 20 years ago, it was $40 taxi ride for like a 5 to 10 minute walk. I'm like, I'm not doing that. I have feet, right? My feet work. I'm not supposed I was,
So you walked?
I think the first time I did that, I might have been like 12.
Okay.
Right? And my mom was like, well, why did you just tell them that
the first time you
walked from the airport? Because no one picked me up because the plane landed from the other direction.
That was the first time you walked ever?
No. From the airport, right? And usually, whenever, you know, we're picking up family, we'll be like real kind of looking out for the plane, listening, plan, all kind of thing. But this one time, it slipped by when you land from the eastern end, especially, right? Because normally it comes from the west, and it's very... That area, you're going to hear it, right? Especially back in the day when it was the Dash, not the Dash 8s, the MC8s. The old jets with BB.
Right.
But this time, I'm like up to 11, 12, 13, somewhere around there. And I'm like, you know what? Because I'm looking at the taxi rates. And I understand, right? Like when you kind of extrapolate it out, sorry. Right? It's more or less like how it is, right? But obviously, it's one thing to pay a large sum of money for distance you can't walk, and to pay a smaller yet still large amount of money for distance you can walk.
Right.
So
you walked?
Yeah. And then they were like, why did you say? Anyway, I just walked.
Oh, I thought there was more to this.
No, that was it.
Okay.
I was so proud of my 12-year-old frugality. The cheap Chinese old man was alive and well in my 12-year-old self.
Wow.
Because all of my family was like, why didn't you just say that you're getting money at the hotel? And you know, I'm like, I'm not accustomed to that.
Your inner child was alive and well, but your inner adult was like,
my inner adult was like, as much as I didn't think it through, I think my inner adult would have been like, we ain't paying that money, no matter what.
Okay, sure. I mean,
I have taken taxis.
I don't know how to respond to
I have taken taxis subsequently, but usually it's because of time. It's like I don't have the time to walk because I'm going from work to airport. It's like I don't have the 10 minutes to walk. I'm going to be late.
Fair. Yeah. I love that you can make an event out of everything in your life.
That's right.
That's just out of everything in your life. That's interesting.
When you have not somewhat slightly protective parents, you kind of going off and walking on your own. It's not something at 12. It's not something they want to hear. Right? Remember, I collected my luggage. You know, I picked up my whole self.
You are a hot mess, but I'm glad that you can make an event out of everything. But anyway, speaking of events, I mean, you mentioned.
To just point out my old Chinese.
Of course,
you're a child.
You mentioned the convention, but last week we also mentioned an important event that's happening on the 27th of July, which is the Lydians concert, the Light Within a Spiritual Celebration. Right? Once again, it's Sunday, the 27th of July at 6 p.m. at the Church of Nativity, Crystal Stream, Diego Martin. This is in aid of the Mary Care Center. If you'd like to know more about it, you can check out our clips that are posted online, as well as any of our reruns. You know, the Mary Care Center, they experienced an intense fire that really just set them back. So the Lydians is raising funds. Cost is $250 in advance tickets and $300 at the door. It's going to be a wonderful, wonderful experience. Here are all of those numbers that you can contact and check out the Lydians on all their social media, Facebook and Instagram.
And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I know Baba Yetu. I've never heard the Lydians perform it, but I know the Lydians, right? I know Lydian Steel. I don't think I've ever heard the Tacomas live.
You've not heard the Tacomas
right?
live yet.
But listen, the reputation is solidified enough that that's fine. I guarantee you that song alone is like an event, which I think is probably not getting enough play and coverage and exposure as it should be. Because this is just one of those things where when you know that a musical act has a certain sound and a very good song, very impressive song, matches that sound as well as it does. This is just one of those things that seems very obvious, and it is almost impossible to not sound good.
Okay.
So I'm telling you, I guarantee you, most of, if not the entire ticket, is worth it for that song alone. Is that closing the show?
It's not closing the show.
But it's towards the end?
It's very well placed in the program that it makes sense, because we're telling a story. We're telling a story.
But
so it's important that, you know,
this should be one of the things. It would have been easier for me to say this at the end, but regardless, it should be one of the things where you are going to walk out. I would be surprised if people wouldn't remember that piece. Right, but maybe it's because I'm biased to the piece, but I just know what it is and internationally what it is.
Right.
So
Not you putting the pressure, but anyway.
What? No pressure. No pressure. If you're in it, I'm never speaking to you again.
Okay. Well, I guess
I'll be in Tobago. I won't be there.
that is true. But anyway, I want to get into...
That's to tell you how strongly I feel about it. I'm that willing to put my neck out there.
We've been rehearsing all week. We rehearsed, and I hid, and I was just like, oh, it's so great.
Yes.
But I want to get into the discussion for today. So, as I don't know if people know about like personality types and stuff like that, but there's in some people swear by it, some people don't like it. But there's always a J in some people's personality, and the J stands for judgment, right? And as an artist,
Myers-Briggs.
Yes, the MBTI sort of personality test. But I just sort of referenced that.
Not everybody has the J.
Some personalities have. Did I say every?
You kind of said something like
Sorry,
that.
okay.
It's a lot more
widespread. I apologize, but some have DJ, and I will say as an artist, sometimes we do have to be in spaces where we make certain judgments about certain things. If we're in a position of leadership and authority, we have to make certain decisions.
You can't get around it, right?
Of course, you have to make certain judgments. But sometimes, and as we see on social media, sometimes we could be a bit too judgmental. Towards each other and towards ourselves even. And there's a clip of Celine Dion that I saw on Instagram that I just thought it'd be excellent. She was speaking about judgment, and I think as an artist it's very important for us artists to keep in mind all of the time. Let's just throw to that clip and then we'll begin our discussion. Yes, we do. All right, no problem. That's fine. That was hilarious. Okay.
I apologize. We cannot share the joke. I don't think it would be. It was not big of a joke, but the timing was brilliant.
But basically, the clip basically said, you know, let's try not to be too judgmental with what we're doing. in terms of our lives don't change just because we said, we disliked a performance or we spoke bad about someone else.
She said it plain. Performers should not be judgmental of other performers, right? And I think the basic premise is true, but there is some room for what you say, because on a professional level, there needs to be some amount of judging,
yes.
right? Obviously, you go to an audition, you are being judged, right? But I think particularly what Celine Dion was saying was, I'm a singer, you're a singer. We should not be going on social media and saying, oh, well, that performance done by this other person was trash, and they have no talent, and da-da-da-da, and we publicly mock them, and blah, 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 right? Obviously, in a professional capacity, if you have to, you do so. If you're asked for feedback, you give it, depending on the nature of the relationship.
Right.
A good friend will give more honest feedback. An acquaintance might try to figure out a diplomatic way to not, to not make waves without lying.
Of course.
Right?
Just
but
tiptoeing around the thing, yeah.
But I think I haven't necessarily noticed this. All right. I don't know if you want to go.
Yeah. We have the clip, so let's go to that.
Judge another one. And doesn't mean I don't have opinions, and we all do. But it would have done what for me to say to some friends or family members that I dislike this performance, or I know what it takes to perform and to be on stage and to give our best. Sometimes our best is the 30% of what we have left in us, because we're sick, because it's all that's we have left in us. We give it all. It's not always perfect.
Yeah.
You know what you said there, this is not a serious movie, Big Trouble in Little China. It was a subversion of a modern Western trope-ish take.
Okay.
Kurt Russell played the American. Usually the American saves the day, but he was the bumbling buffoon. Gave in a great performance. The key part with why that links to what Celine Dion said, they apparently had a bad flu the entire shoot. Like the entire shoot, he's there suffering with this horrible flu, and I don't think the conditions are always necessarily like the most comfortable. Right? So, you won't know.
Yeah.
Right, and I think there's a lot of situations like that where there are times, I think, I can't remember, but stage performers, touring performers, they go there. Some, especially in K-pop, there's a lot of criticism coming from the fans, because the artists know better than to get themselves in controversy, because over there it's very judgmental. The fans are very judgmental. Fans will be quick to say, oh, that was low energy, or this, or that, right? And I do wonder to what extent now, if Celine would have gone further on the issue of, well, what about overly judgmental fans? Because she said, well, I know what it takes, and arguably performers know what it takes. So if there's anyone qualified to give an opinion on performances, it's performers. But not all fans, some fans know, not all fans know. And they just don't like what they're hearing and want to decry it.
And I think there's a confusion, not a confusion, I think there's a veil line between, there's a vague line between being judgmental and holding people to a certain standard and being accountable, right? I think sometimes on the fan level, we tend to be judgmental because, like, no, I expect better from you, or this is what I expect from you. But sometimes we don't always know the best way to, we don't always know the best way to hold them to that standard aside from the words that we use. But we don't always know how to adjust the words. There are certain circumstances that call for, just making certain adjustments for certain circumstances. Now, I will say there was another interview that I saw some time ago. A classical singer, a famous classical singer, she was being interviewed, and the person asked, what would you say to the audience about this big project that you're doing, or any performance that you do? And she said, to the audience out there, allow us to play. give us the elbow room, give us the room and the space, because while we are performing, while we're doing work, you know, it's almost like we're also giving it a sense of play as well, like kids in a sandbox type of thing. So she said, give audience needs to give the performers the room to grow and to do their thing on the stage, because sometimes if it's a hall full of people, if it's a hall full of judgmental people, we are already in a sensitive space on stage, so we are going to feel it. And with feeling it, it may or may not affect, it may affect our performance as well. But one of the points that I also wanted to make is the self-judgment.
Yeah.
As artists, we can be very, very, and just as people in general, we can be very, very hard on ourselves when we are used to growing up around a certain culture. We think there are certain societal norms that we need to achieve. We think there are certain, accomplishments that we need at a certain point in time. Like I deal with this with some students as well. I remember a friend of mine, and I assist him and I guide him. He's in university, and sometimes he gets upset, or sometimes he gets flustered rather, when the learning of the thing does not fit within his expected timeline. Like he expects it to be this way at this point in time, and I'm like, it will work at some points, but it won't work with everything, right? You're as regardless of, because I mean I'm a vocalist, but I'm also a pianist and a conductor. For somebody who's a vocalist and not necessarily an instrumentalist, when they are doing the instrument arranging courses, you know, it's very new to them, because they're used to working with their voice, with vocals, in choral music. They're not used to steel ensemble. It's very different. So having that sort of different experience, like you're not going, even though it happened for you, let's say in your choral setting or in your solo vocal setting, it won't happen for you as quickly and as well in the instrumental setting.
It goes to, you don't know what you don't know. And what the funny part is, why do you have expectations? You don't know what it is in order to accurately assess expectations.
Right.
But then the other thing, there's an interesting little anecdote. Stuart Copeland of the Police, one of the issues Sting and him had is, he does not actually formally organize anything. He just ad-libs his way through everything.
Okay.
So all of his takes was like first or second take,
right.
And I think part of it is when you said, give us room. You know, part of it is, it's also knowing how you or other people operate, and knowing that not everybody operates the same as you.
Right.
So then now for other performers, it's like, look, your process is not their process. Right. Your learning process, your development process, how you approach the performance, what you key on in the performance. And I think mature performers understand and appreciate that, because then they're like, that's what makes it interesting if we collaborate, if we do the same piece, if we do remixes of each other's pieces, right? The difference is, we're not the same performer, we're not the same singer, right? But sometimes, a lot of the time when humans want to be judgmental, it's because it's supposed to be this way. Well, who says it's supposed to be that way? A lot of the time it's like, who says you have to mow the lawn from east to west, north to south? Like, what if somebody wants to do it a different way? That works for them, right? Sometimes it might be more efficient their way for them to do it their way. Sometimes they don't care about efficiency. They're more comfortable doing it that way.
Yeah, I may be spilling a secret here, so forgive me. But for those of us, actually I don't think it's a secret, because it's all over social media sometimes.
Sometimes.
It's all over social media sometimes.
You know? But that's like me. I'm always right sometimes. Yeah.
there's a sort of an unspoken rule among people who go into the artistic endeavors, who study artistry and music on a tertiary level. You learn the rules so that you'll know how to break them.
Yes.
Or how to work around them necessarily.
Yes.
Because if you're just doing, because it matters once you know the reason why. It matters once you know the reason. This rule may work, this precedent may work in this setting, however in this setting, the variables are different, the factors are different, therefore it's not, but I can explain it to you as to why it's not.
There's I think it's an Eastern European style of singing where they use disharmonies. I've sent you a clip before.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure what they're doing will break some conventional rules of singing.
It depends on what part of the world,
I'm hoping that somebody in TNT, I won't say who, may look into doing a piece like that, because it would be quite impressive. given that it's a very distinct and unique performing style. If anybody here that we may know that might have a group that might have talented singers and may be able to figure out, I don't know anybody like that, not at all. With that said, another aspect that I just wanted to go, a real example of judgmental and how not everything has to be the same. And again, it's a bit of some semi-frivolous example, but of course, there are certain directors historically that are highly respected, right? Some from the 90s. And there are a crop now like Nolan and Denis Villeneuve, but back in the day it was Martin Scorsese, was one of the big directors, right? He came out and said, famously at this point, superhero films are not real films. And I think a lot of people, part of that is when you are in the position given this critique, if you're not careful, you sound like you're coming off with sour grapes, because his last big epic film that had all the usual suspects, Al Pacino, Robert De Niro, Joe Pesci, right? It was about Jamie Hoffa. So this is a big topic with big heavyweight actors, and there were more actors, and it was on Netflix. I didn't do that well. Right, it didn't do that well. And granted, superhero films now are not doing that well. I would argue some of them were very well made, and that's why most of the ones that made $1 billion were very well made examples of cinema, right? Now, Scorsese comes across like he has sour grapes, and you have to be careful for that because you're a public figure and art is subjective, and you want people to give your art a chance, as what that singer was asking.
Give us
Quentin Tarantino had a good take on television. He said he was watching Yellowstone, and he was impressed with the dialogue and the production value. But he said it wasn't cinema, because it was like a soap opera. It kept going. And to him, cinema has an end, a resolution. The story has a conclusion. So you need all the epic dialogue and all the epic production value, but you also need a story arc. That's what cinema is. So he doesn't come, because he's like, I'm enjoying the show. And it's like cinema, but it's not cinema, right? And then people kind of need to understand the needs of the different mediums. They're not exactly the same, right? So his criticism does not come across as sour grapes, in part because his projects aren't failing left and right, and he's just criticizing the projects that are failing. He's jumping mediums and saying, even though I like it, it's not what I do. For these constructive reasons.
So then it boils down to, like, you won't know, you don't know the full story of it. You're not in it to have enough information to make a proper judgment. You can objectively say, not objectively, but you can say,
from my
perspective, you can be very specific and say, you know, maybe I didn't like this. I'm just being very basic. I didn't like this angle. I didn't like this lighting in this scene. I didn't like how because that's something that he knows about, right? You can make certain specific things.
Now he did go on to say, and the problem with that is with television, at times it runs the risk where it's not going to be memorable like cinema, right?
But then,
so now you could say he's being a bit subjective, but I do think there's some truth.
Right. So then that could open a discussion of somebody saying, well, television has its own sort of guidelines and rules per se. The more people get involved in it, the more we're able to figure it out and make a genre out of it, as opposed to cinema, because there are a lot of actors who they prefer one media over the other. So sometimes it's either film, television, or theater, live theater.
I do think, though, with very few exceptions, like obviously Tom Cruise, Henry Cavill, a lot of actors are crossing over to television, streaming series in particular, because at 12 episodes, it's like a long movie. So it's potentially limited commitment, right? Zoe Saldana did 2 seasons of Lioness. So
I remember there was a interview with gosh, I almost said Meredith Grey, Ellen Pompeo, and she said, you know, it's the great thing about streaming services is like there's a beginning and an end.
Yes,
that's what she appreciates.
She did a miniseries.
Yeah, she did a miniseries. She was actually talking to Katherine Heigl, who also did a miniseries in
I think in part Ellen Pompeo, because she's the lead in Grey's Anatomy, right?
That has 25,000 seasons.
Yeah, it has gone on.
It's still good.
Yeah. It was an old show when I started watching it 15 years ago, right? Let's just be real now. 50.
Hey, I watch it.
2008, 2009. I started watching it. It already was like 6-7 seasons long.
Yes,
right?
They're like season 20.
But I think Tarantino's point, and he is, I think, you could say maybe a little bit sour because cinema as an art form for various reasons is under duress, and television is having a silver age, like a renaissance, whatever. But particularly streaming, which is kind of unfair because that's like an in-between thing. But even network television is being a bit more, we have an overarching plot.
Yes.
So it's more like a large movie than just this week-to-week kind of dribble.
For sure,
but Tarantino's point that, is it all memorable? Now, arguably, yes, you will get memorable moments in some seasons of Grey's Anatomy, but at some point, the story of Meredith Grey, Ellen Pompeo's character, do you really remember all of it? And I'm sure there are parts of it you're like, I would rather forget. I don't need that. I mean, to be fair, I do the same thing with Star Wars. It's like, I don't need that. Or Star Trek, I don't need that. Some of that was nonsense. It was bad writing. I'll just ignore it.
I think memory has a lot to do with the watcher's time and stage and age, because I remember there are moments that are more memorable to me when I was younger than now. But I won't know if these now moments are memorable until I get older. So it's like it's almost like that sort of catch-22.
Perception, everything is new.
So
you're more impressionable because of that.
Exactly.
Right.
And I always say like Lion King is my favorite movie of all time, but I think my dad told me it was the first movie that I ever watched. The animated one.
Yeah.
It was the first movie that I ever watched in K-Donna. Who remembers K-Donna?
I love K-Donna.
So that was I think that was the first movie that I ever watched.
We lost something losing K-Donna. I'm sorry. Although, just yesterday, my friends were like, you remember Globe? Yeah, and I was like, yeah, but you used to watch 2 movies. I'm like, back then movies were an hour and a half, right?
Yes.
You know, 2-3 hour movies, we might all die, right? Yeah. We don't have the
can't all be an Avengers Endgame every single time.
No, but because people are accustomed to the one movie model.
Right,
but the drive-through probably could have lasted in the one movie model, to be honest.
Exactly, because a lot of vintage things are kind of coming back. But come back to the topic and developing on your points. Like, we need to be very, very careful. I think in the artistic space, because especially in Trinidad and Tobago, the artistic space is small. People know each other.
Especially since you see this in K-pop, but in other... So one of the reasons I think social media and streamers are popular is because it's tied to their personality. They reveal more of themselves. And K-pop does a lot of... The artists do a lot of streams and variety show appearances, right? So imagine a reality show, but it's not random people. It's all celebrity people all the time. That's what their variety shows are basically like, right? Imagine Price is Right or Big Brother, but just always with celebrities, right? And they're more exposed, and people are more judgmental of them. So they themselves now can't be judgmental. Right. They have to be very, very careful, for better or worse.
But I would
that
say,
might be where the future is for celebrities.
For sure. And just as we wrap up, I would also say just for us artists to be very aware of the space that we're in. And there's a time for competition, but there's also a time for collaboration. You know, there's a time for when we need to be like, yes, really story, really quickly, beautiful story. I accompanied 3 school choirs for a music festival, which was 2020, just before the lockdown, and it was with 3 different schools, 3 different music teachers that all knew each other and that were all friends with each other. And even though it was a competitive setting, because you know it's music festival, we're all competing, but the spirit of collaboration was still able to exist, and that was a really beautiful thing.
That requires maturity that not everybody in any field has.
Correct is right.
Not just music.
Correct is right. But that's our discussion for our first segment. We're going to come right back to Breakthrough. Don't go anywhere.
Feeling drained? Struggling to keep up? It's time to take control of your wellness. On this episode of Wellness Unlocked, we're diving into the key nutrients your body needs for all-day energy and balance. With 100% or more of your daily essential vitamins, plus added chromium to support healthy blood sugar, this is complete wellness in a single soft gel. Join us as we uncover how small changes can make a big impact on your health. Don't miss Wellness Unlocked. Watch now on WESN and take the first step toward better health.
Hi, I'm Claudette, radiographer at the radiology departments at the community hospital. We offer high-quality service with state-of-the-art equipment in X-ray, ultrasound, CT, and mammogram. Come, our friendly staff awaits you.
Give us a call at 235-5479.
The Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
where good private health care is affordable.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, The Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378, or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
You are watching Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Just give an overview of what exactly is that split arrangement.
Nah, you don't need to register nothing. We can do that another time. But then it becomes a hit, and then everybody starts to want to claim.
The laws that predate many of the independent countries' constitutions are going to be those colonial laws.
We know there are an infinite amount of circumstances that would lead to a murder.
I have a great idea and I have a great concept, but until it's actually expressed, it does not become intellectual property.
Accomplishments or targets of a forensic accountant is to quantify what may have been lost.
We believe we defend criminals and we manipulated the law and we exploited the system.
A responsible journalist will reach out to the person who they have the information on for a comment.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
We are tackling the hard-hitting topics, some controversial topics, some topics we sweep under the rug. You don't always have to forgive in a relationship for it to move forward.
If it is you are in a situation where you forgive the person, but to the detriment of yourself, what are you really doing?
It is very uncommon for somebody in the younger age group to have dementia.
Atheists don't not believe.
Is that I can't disprove God, but you also can't prove God, so we cannot have a stalemate.
We'll focus on the woman who's being the victim, or the man who's being the victim. We exclude the children.
Folks are trying to study the underlying brain mechanism to figure out how does this particular disorder happen in the brain? How is the brain processing this?
Don't worry about AI, worry about humans working with AI.
Are you willing to learn new skills to stay relevant for the future job market? That's the challenge that people are going to struggle with.
SM Group International Limited, your solutions partner for the latest innovations, brands, and competent staff to meet your needs. We provide products and services in the following divisions: executive services, event rental and services, power and heavy equipment, construction and property management, food and beverage, aggregate and sales and distribution. Check out more on our products and services at www.smgrouptt.com. Contact us at 221-7445 or email at info@smgrouptt.com. We are SM Group International, your solutions partner.
As always, we appreciate you starting your day with us. Let's get into this morning's first conversation.
Is the country's healthcare system more at risk, more than ever?
Why it has remained unaddressed for so long.
Political parties get lots of cash, big cash from financiers, and then when they get that now, you can't account for it.
But it's really the specialist nurses who we are in a greater shortfall for.
We can tap into the resources and have them, at least form some mentorship programs.
Highlight our food systems, and which will attract persons from all over the world to come and experience something that actually supports the local economy.
We're lucky that we have a vibrant legal system that allows change to take place, and it's not that matters are just swept under the carpet and discrimination is allowed to be perpetrated.
A lot of people don't know that there were attempts to ban the carnival, suppress the carnival.
Hello, Trinidad and Tobago, and welcome back to Breakthrough. Which one is my camera?
The left.
There we go.
Yeah.
Okay, great. I sometimes don't know when we have that.
It's okay. I was fooled too.
Well, thank you for joining us once again for our second segment. And we have our guests with us this morning. Introducing the owners of Mosaic Performing Academy, we have with us Chelsea and Mark. Good morning.
Hi, good morning. Good morning.
Hi, guys.
Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Of course. Yes, for the
purpose
purposes of the audience, Mark will now be referred to as Mark Anthony, right? At least when I say it, Mark Anthony. Right, yeah.
Thank you very much for that clarification.
Yeah, just make it sure.
Without a hyphen. But anyway, so we are here.
I don't have to say hyphen.
It's fine.
Hyphenated names
Okay.
with a hyphen.
Thank you very much. That's okay. That's okay.
Hyphen Anthony.
Yes. Yeah, yes, Mark. Hyphen Anthony.
This is what happens. This is what happens when the fellow DCFA people are on the second week. Oh my gosh.
They
get too comfortable.
We have Mark hyphen Anthony Peter.
So we are here talking about...
we have to put that on your license. On your driver's
Thank you very much. Thank you. We are here talking about Mosaic Performing Arts Academy, and you all have a concert coming up. Now, before we get into the concert, can you all talk about the academy for us and let the people know what your vision is for the academy?
Yeah. Do you want to start?
Yeah, I can. So Mosaic initially came about because we've noticed that in the educational space for the performing arts, it tends to be very theory-driven, just in my personal experience. It tends to lean towards education and just furthering knowledge, which is 100% valid. But I do think, and saying Mark, we've had a lot of conversations about this, there is a need for performance. And we feel as though that push for performing is not as strong as it could be, and not just in music, but also in acting, because Mosaic initially started as an acting academy.
Right.
And then music and dance came after. So especially for acting, performing is just the crux of it, it's the bread and butter.
Okay. So how do you balance the education and the performance? Because as you mentioned, the knowledge is very important. But being able to, for lack of a better term, perform in a setting where the actual when you need to apply the knowledge in a practical setting, how do you balance the two?
So we do like to have. Sorry, do you want to take this on?
I can take this one.
Okay. Sure, no problem.
So I just want to first start off with our name, right? So Mosaic.
And when you think of mosaic, you think of just a bunch of different things coming together to form a picture, like an artwork. And that's what we wanted to introduce mosaic as. So we're bringing dance, we're bringing acting, we're bringing music. We even want to bring art at some point to create a holistic like art piece, if that makes sense.
Yes.
And so in that, like Mark was rightfully saying, what next? And performance is like a major thing. So for this entire term, we've been focusing on the performance. We're like, okay, everybody has their set performance, like what their routine and what they're gonna do. And whether it's music, you have all your kids doing their own pieces. I have all my kids doing our own pieces. And we just wanna create a culture around it that fosters that performance is like important. And we want our kids to have fun out there, you know?
For the layman who wouldn't fully understand the distinctive differences between technical knowledge and performance, what you're speaking to is not just the ability to know what notes to press and at what time to press them, but how to then turn that into something that will, you know, evoke an emotion, be more than just a robotic recreation that you can just put in a computer and, digitally recreate this based on what's written, but rather someone to individualize it and maybe impart some of themselves into it, right?
Interpretation. Yeah, so I would just mention the stuff that was mentioned before in terms of just you end up with a lot of students that just know how to play really virtuosic pieces, but can't function too much in a band setting. Their active listening is not something that's really well developed. Even just being able to, something like improvisation. There are a lot of people that they will sit down, they'll play grade 8 and above pieces, or they have this really high knowledge of even with acting, but you ask them to do something that can impart themselves into their instrument, and it is a struggle because that is something that has not been developed, and that is something that's really important to
So for acting, would a similar thing be, well, you could copy a performance, but then the question is, can you make your own performance? Like, could that be fair?
There's probably the difference between like a solo monologue and
so one thing we're trying to do with our kids is not just be like, okay, this is a really popular piece, go mimic it exactly. Because that's not what acting is. Acting is an internal, journey. It's bringing your own story and your own just little tweaks and nuances to the character. So two people like you and I, Mark, we can play two characters and it'd be completely different. We can make two completely different interpretations of this one character. And we're given the same information, but it's just different. And that's one thing I don't want my kids to do, where it's like, well, our students, we just call them our kids because we love them. That's one thing we don't want our students to do, is just be like, okay, well, I can copy this exactly. You have to bring your own to it, your own uniqueness.
For sure. And with that exposure, they're able to develop on their own and become self-sufficient artists. And it's one of those things, as ironically having this conversation with a friend last night actually, and there's always that journey of knowing when because he's a singer, knowing when the singer stops and the artist begins, right? So it's a matter of when does the artist, Chelsea, when did the artist Mark, without the hyphen, start, that sort of thing. So tell us about the concert that is happening this Friday, the 25th of July at 6:30 p.m. at the Cascade Community Center.
Okay, so one thing we're very proud of is the name, and names are something that's very big for us. So with the title, A Whole New World, we were, this is our debut showcase, right? And it's kind of like a play on words of, yes, of course, Aladdin and, that gorgeous song and everything. But we are bringing people into the new world that we want to create of performance, especially under, I did come up with it. We were really just brainstorming and I'm like, this sounds right.
Okay.
Let's just go with that.
But
do you want to take the rest of that?
Yeah, so because, we've definitely talked a lot about the culture that we want to foster around performance, but there is also a bit of a disconnect because not many of our students have that performance experience yet. So, because a lot of them are young. We have students as young as 5 years old going up and playing for the first time on piano and stuff like that, and some as young as, I think, 8 for acting. So seven. So it can be really jarring, as all of us here are performers, we know it can be really jarring. So this first showcase is something that is more very recital, where it's also a lot smaller, a lot more intimate. That's why we chose the Cascade Community Center. It's a place that we do have a relationship with. We held our first acting workshop there this year. So yes, full circle, we're coming back to there. And it's a lot more intimate, so that when these kids, when these very young people with no performance experience, or even the ones that do have performance experience with, let's say, larger choirs, but now we're showing them what it's like to do solo, because we have some that are playing and singing at the same time. You know, that's not easy. So
it's not.
So we don't want to give that added pressure of them looking out and then seeing a sea of 300, 400, 500, 600 people. So we're keeping it very small for this first one, because we do plan to have other showcases and other performances and stuff like that later in the year, so that this is just something that they can say, okay, we did this, we have that experience, I've been on a stage, so that when we put them in front of that sea of people later down in the year, it's not so jarring for them.
How can, and this is something great for parents to keep in mind, how can parents reach out to you and let's say they wanted to enroll their child into the academy? How can they reach out to you?
Yeah, so, well, they can reach out to us directly on our Instagram. We have a public page, and our registration form is on there, so you guys can go ahead.
mosaicperforms.tt.
Okay, mosaicperforms.tt. And the reason I said that is because, you know, it's very difficult. You can't learn everything all in one place, and it is community sort of, it's community organizations like this, like the community choirs that we have, like the other performing arts academies that we have, that strengthen the overall, not just the, I would say that strengthens the performance capabilities of our young artists, of our young children, because I mean, even as a teacher, sometimes you don't really, I don't expect my students to go into music and pursue it on a huge level, but I treat it as such, whereas that they can walk away with much knowledge and much appreciation for the art form. So that's always important. All of these community organizations. What is your hope for Mosaic? Let's say the next 2, 3, 5 years.
Oh gosh. Well, Mark always has to rein me in, because I'm just like, let's turn Mosaic into the next Broadway.
I love that. I love that, yes.
But he's very supportive, I would say.
Okay.
And he's just like, okay, that's great, but what are the steps? How do we get there? We have a lot of big dreams. We want to reach out to so many different communities, especially in Trinidad, because one thing that's important to us is being accessible, being inclusive, bringing to kids who may not be able to afford it, may not be able to, may not even know, like, what is acting, what is music. They may not know.
Or know that it's available here.
Exactly, exactly. So that's one thing that's really important to us. We want to obviously expand regionally.
Of course.
But one thing that is near and dear to our hearts is just giving back. And we started with a free acting workshop. And we want to we will keep doing that annually. Whether the next one might be a dance workshop, a free dance workshop, or music. So that's kind of where we want to go with Mosaic.
Okay, that's amazing. And I mean, you have to dream big when it comes to these things. You have to dream big, but you also have to have these steps.
You have to grow sustainably.
You have to grow sustainably. Yes.
It ties me back to what we were speaking about before, because I do wonder if the observation you made, you could be technically proficient, are you performers? How creative are you, I guess, is the implication. And then it leads me to the question of, how much do you think that impacts the actual creating original work? Because that's something that came up here with other guests. We are performers, and the industry is trying to amount to something. But if we're just doing other people's work, to what extent is it just always going to be a derivative of someone else's industry? Yes. And that's going to limit how much it could grow, because we have to pay them copyright and all of that.
Well, actually, a couple of our students, I think 3 of our students actually wrote their own pieces for the show, which acting we are so proud of that. Yeah, well, they'll be my acting students. But I do agree that...
To some extent, that's even more impressive, because acting is even less known in TNT, I would imagine, to music, right? So to say, oh, we're going so far as to writing scripts.
We really do have like some,
and not even just monologues, but full dialogue interactions between two and more people that they've wrote themselves. And these are people that, what are they, like 9?
Like
10?
Young.
Yeah.
Very young.
So it's there.
What is the greatest, what are like those moments where you're in the class and you see them do something or they interact with each other and then you're like, you know what, we're doing something good here. Like what's one of those moments that you could recall?
You want to take this one first?
I think so. I think for me, one of those moments where it just comes over me that, okay, wow, we're doing something good would be if I am trying to impart something, and it usually doesn't take place in one class, I think. It takes place over a period of time.
Right.
Like I would have a kid that's prepping for exams, and then they come in and they're like, okay, for instance, and I might get a little theoretical, I'm a bit of a theory nerd. So I have this way that I like to show them how to read music where I don't say, okay, don't look at everything where it's just note. Like this is E, every good boy deserves food. You know what I mean? Right. I would say, let's look at the context, let's look at the contour, and let's also, because we're playing piano and you know there's two hands happening, I would say let's read in bar by bar what chord is happening in the left hand. Because a lot of them tend to say, okay, I'm playing C, G, C, and then E here, then B, D, you know, like that. But I say, no, let's think of the chord, C, G, C, we're playing a C chord. You go G, B, G, B, that's a G chord again. Right. So then when they start to think like that, I realize in the next class they are flying through the music because now they're not taking it note by note for each finger on each hand. They're just reading in blocks, because for me, I tell the parents, I tell the students, I say music is a language. Music is music. I treat reading music theory the way they would be in a Spanish class. I say, let's not write any notes. Let's not write the notes underneath, because no one does that for a language, right? So when I see them come and they're like, okay, I've grasped this, I've understood what you showed me, and now my sight reading has improved. I'm just like, wow, okay. Because me, I used to struggle with sight reading until I started looking at it like that.
It's like you're not playing notes. It's almost like how when you learn to fluently speak in sentences, as opposed to trying to think out each word, word. You're like, not note, but like, this is the line. And at the end of the line, next line.
And another thing is, I mean, I always say that music is a language too, because we need to be able to read it, write it, and speak it, right, on varying levels, and it has context it, much like any sort of language does. So if we could just pull up the flyer one more time just before we head out. Mosaic Academy presents A Whole New World, shining, shimmering, splendid. Nice. Friday the 25th of July at 6:30 p.m. at the Cascade Community Center. Complimentary meal included with ticket, and you can purchase tickets at 339-8555. And as they said, they are on social media, mosaicperforms.tt. Yes, thank you very much.
I've only now noticed a detail on the flyer where you have like the masks for the theater, the ballet dancer, and the music notes, right? So before I didn't know, is this a dance group? Is this but it's like, oh,
yeah, almost as a mosaic.
What is true? That is my first impression. But you know, when you do fancy the first time, now you know the standard is here. It can't go down to here. Now you have to do something above the next time.
We're only gonna get bigger and better.
Of course. And tickets are $150. I did not mention that tickets and that's amazing. So go and support this wonderful academy that's doing great things. Chelsea, Mark, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Of course.
It's so great. Can't wait to hear much of all of the big things you all are going to do. Ladies and gentlemen, Trinidad and Tobago, this has been Breakthrough. My name is, that's my camera, yes. My name is Mark Anthony Peter, Sean Michael Small.
Yeah, you forgot my name in between the show this time. What? Did I lie?
Thank you for joining us.
I didn't lie.
I can't do my outro properly.
Tell the lies.
This has been Breakthrough.
Hurry up, I have to go on a plane to Tobago.
I know, to leave me.
Stop taking so long.
Have a wonderful week, everybody. Trinidad and Tobago, ladies and gentlemen. Bye-bye.
Was that so hard?
WESN.
Here is your WESN News on the Hour. I'm Naomi McNish. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. QRC honors alumni at Hall of Honor ceremony. The police commissioner calls for public support during the state